The constant yogi who is ever content, self-controlled, unshakable in determination, with mind and intellect given up to me, he, my devotee, is dear to me. Shri Krishna says that a devotee should be a yogi, meaning one who is joined with the Supreme Soul, and adds that one should constantly be a yogi, meaning one who is constantly joined with the Supreme Soul. Not only that, the devotee should be ever content and have contentment. The Lord says that the devotee should be self-controlled, where he keeps the body, including the mind, the senses, all under control. He should be unshakable in determination. Not only that, but his mind and his intellect should be given up to God. Shri Krishna says that such a devotee of him is very dear to God. Shankaranandji has written a very nice commentary of the Gita. He's written about this verse that the word satatam, meaning ever in this verse, can be applied to each and every one of the 5 qualities in this verse. Shama Viryasya Bhusham. Therefore, this verse involves Shri Krishna saying that the devotee should be ever content, ever a yogi, ever self-controlled, ever unshakable in determination, ever having his mind and his intellect given up to God. The word ever can therefore be to each of the 5 qualities in this verse. The first quality described is being content, and in fact being ever content. Contentment is a very great quality. Santosh eva purushaya param nidanam. Satatam iti veshana panchaknapi sambayate. So, santosh eva purushaya param nidanam means contentment is the abode of the Supreme Being. Being content is a very big quality, but the special thing here is that devotee is ever content. We all get content, and it is not as if we do not get content, but our being content is not being ever content. If we are hungry, then this discontentment arises that I will have to eat something. We eat 2 chapatis, 3 chapatis, 4 chapatis, or 5 chapatis, and we gulp in our stomachs. Therefore, at that time, we become content. Then if someone opposite us gives us a 6 chapati, then we say, no, now we're content. But the difficulty is that this contentment does not last for very long. After 5 or 6 hours, the same person will say, now give it to me. Why? 5 hours ago you said you were content. You say, I was content before, but not now. This becomes a very ordinary example, but in the same way in each and everything in life, a person immediately becomes content after enjoying material pleasures, but this contentment does not last for very long. After some time passes, then once again the wish to enjoy material pleasures comes again. It comes back again. This is the case in each and everything in life. A devotee is such that contentment is his fixed feeling. Otherwise, even we are content. We are content on many occasions. But for a devotee, contentment is not a temporary state, it is a permanent state. This is a very big difference. When I talk about contentment, then I always remember a story from Khalil Gibran. Whoever you look for companionship and company from someone in life, then make sure that this person is content. They may be content from an everyday perspective, content from a material or monetary perspective, or content from an emotional perspective. If they're content from an emotional perspective, then they'll be able to give you bliss. But if that person is discontent, then that person will irritate you. Khalil Gibran writes about a story. A lion and fox came from a jungle, and after traveling, they arrived at a town. When they arrived in a town, then they found a restaurant and a hotel, and they went inside. They saw an empty table with empty chairs, went to a table, and when they saw the lion at the beginning, then everyone started running around and panicking. Everybody ran outside, but these 2 animals were ineffective and just sat down calmly. The hotel manager, who was standing by the desk, he found this strange at the beginning, but then he thought that it's good that these animals have come to eat. He told the waiter to go and take an order because a new clientele was opening up. Up until now, only human beings were coming to the hotel, but now even animals are coming to the hotel. He asked them to take their order. The waiter came there hesitantly and scared, thinking that there is a lion seated here, and in the other line there's a fox. The lion is a boss and the king of the jungle. One would fear just talking to him. The waiter asked this fox for the order. It was in his nature to ask the fox first, and not the lion. The fox said that they would like 1 plate of bhajiyas, 1 plate of mithai, and 1 cup of tea. The waiter wrote on the list, 1 plate of bhajiyas, 1 plate of sweets, and 1 cup of tea. The waiter then looked at the lion and asked if he wanted something. Because if you do not order anything, then you will go hungry. The fox gave a very nice answer, that the lion is content and not hungry, and that is why the fox is sitting there. If the lion was hungry, then the fox would be finished by now, and the fox would be his dinner for so long. It is because the lion is content that the fox can sit down quietly to eat. If the lion was not content, then the fox would be finished. Gibran says that this is a very important story. It is very necessary that the person who you're with is content. If the person with you is discontent and dissatisfied, then he will move his first hand and it will come on you. Therefore, whenever you tie a relationship, be it a relationship of friendship, a relationship of trust, a business relationship, or any other type of relationship, then just see whether this person themselves are content or not. In society, you see that by tying a relation with those who are discontent, we get ruined. The person who we're tying a relationship with should be content. That is why Shri Krishna says a devotee should be content. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavat, there is a very nice verse. The 5 chapters that are the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th chapters of the 7th canto are the 5 chapters explaining Dharma, where Naraji explains Dharma to Yudhishthira, where he describes the good qualities of people in the 15th chapter. It explains what is contentment and how necessary contentment is in life. While explaining this, Naraji says that Sada Santushya Manashaha Sarva Sukha Maya Disha Sarkara Kantaya Vibhyo Yato Panat Padashivam. Just like one has worn shoes on their feet, has no fear of stepping on thorns, stones, or sharp objects, no matter where he walks, in the same way, one who has contentment in his heart, such a person goes into each and every place without fear, and not only that, but such a person only gets happiness after happiness in each and every place, and never gets sorrows from any place. When a person has worn shoes on their feet, then they will have no fear in stepping on thorns, stones, or sharp objects, no matter whether they walk, because they know that they will have worn shoes on their feet. They are walking without fear. In the same way, a person who has contentment in his heart goes into each and every place without fear, and not only that, but this person gets only happiness after happiness in each and every place, and never gets sorrows from any place. Just like the shoes on one's feet protects one from thorns, in the same way, the contentment in the heart protects us from the pleasures and pains of life. This is because pains are born from incompleteness. A person who is content never feels incomplete anywhere, and therefore there is not even a question of the pains being born. Wherever this person goes, this person only has happiness. Of all the saints I have a lot of adoration for, one of them is Swami Ramtirth. Swami Ramtirth says, Jungle mein jogi rehta hai, kabhi hasta hai, kabhi rota hai, badal mujhko nahlata hai. An ascetic who lives in the jungle sometimes laughs and sometimes cries. When the clouds shower down with rain, they're bathing me. He says that whenever I look, all I can see is incompleteness. This is because whenever I'm hungry and I look out, then I always see some fruit or another hanging from a tree. My God, my mother and my God is sending me fruits. I do not think that any poet in the world has this feeling that the clouds are turning grey to bathe them. Why do the clouds turn grey? Because my mother is bathing me. The Supreme Soul is bathing me, and that is why it's raining. The clouds are turning grey to bathe me. This is contentment. Whatever one gets is enough. Devotees are always rejoicing. If a person has enormous amount of wealth but is not content, then there is no beggar like him in the world. And no matter if another person has less wealth on the outside but is content on the inside, then there is no owner like him in the world. Is it possible to close that door? Yeah. I will carry on with another story of Swami Ramtirth. When he went to America, then he would always introduce himself to people as the Emperor of Ram. Whenever he would write a letter to anyone saying that he was going to come, then he would sign off as the Emperor of Ram is going to come to yours. He would never write the word I, and he would only call himself the Emperor of Ram. When he came to somebody's place, then he would say, look, the Emperor of Ram has come. And people asked him, you are addressing yourself as Emperor of Ram, but where is your kingdom? Swami Ramtirth answered that the whole world is my kingdom. The whole world is my kingdom. He would wear only loincloth and nothing else. He would say that the whole world is my kingdom. This land is not yours but mine. These houses and everything you see is all mine. somebody would ask him, how is all of this yours? Swami Ramdev would answer, the owner of the world is mine. And if the owner of the world is mine, then the whole world is mine. This is contentment. And another devotee asks him that you call yourself the emperor, but how can you do this? How can you become the emperor? Were you the emperor from the beginning? Swami Ramdev said, I was not the emperor from the beginning, I became the emperor. The devotee asks, Swami Ramdev, how did you become the emperor? And Swami Ramdev gave his answer in a simple and straightforward quote that, Jagahi chinta miti manma be parva, jisko kachu na jaye, wo shaho ka shah. Gone are the worries that spring from the desires of the mind. One who does not want anything is the king of kings. While one has wishes, then worries will always be there. The day when the wishes go away, then the worries also disappear. Jagahi chinta miti manma be parva, jisko kachu na jaye, wo shaho ka shah. Gone are the worries that have sprung from the desires of the mind. One who does not want anything is the king of kings. Swami Ramdev said that from that day, he became the king of kings. And Swami Ramdev always says that if I can become this, then this means that you can also become that. This is because I was not an emperor from birth. I attained this royalty. I did not attain this royalty from wealth on the outside. I attained this royalty from understanding on the inside. You can also attain this. A devotee is always content. Every saint has said this. Kabir said that Godana Gajidana Vajidan or Ratan Dhan Khan Jab Paave Santosh Dhan Sab Dhan Doli Saman. The wealth of cattle, horses and elephants and all mines of gems and diamonds are like worthless dust and pebbles before the wealth of contentment. No matter what else one has, if one does not have contentment, then how will this work? This is the first quality of a devotee. If we count it according to the qualities described, then this is the 8th quality, ever content. The next quality described in this verse is ever a yogi. Yogi comes from the stem yuja, which means to join. Therefore, a yogi who is one who is joined with God. Even we are joined with God, but we're temporarily joined with God. Maybe in 24 hours, 5 or 10 minutes will come when we're joined with God. On the other hand, a devotee is one who is forever joined with the Supreme Soul. A devotee is never even separated from God for a single moment. Great saints give a very good definition of who a devotee is. A devotee is one who is never separate. This is a devotee. That is why Shri Krishna says that a devotee is ever a yogi. Shri Krishna then says that a devotee is ever self-controlled. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya Ji says that such a devotee keeps his mind, he keeps the body, including the mind and the senses, under his control. This is one who is self-controlled. He keeps them under his control. And this he does always. One only needs to apply the brakes of a car when one sees something ahead of them. The entire car comes to a halt. Many people are careful while they drive that things may come up on the road, but the car must always be under their control. On many occasions it goes out of control, and even when you apply the brakes, then it will not make a difference. This is what happens. If a car is going out of control, and you suddenly apply the brakes, then the car will begin to skid or slide, and an accident takes place. Just like it's the case with a car on the outside, it's the same with a car of the body in life. If it is ever in your control, and if you apply the brakes at the right time, then it will come more under your control and the car. But if you do not keep it under control from the beginning, are driving it fast and suddenly have to apply the brakes, then there will be an accident even if you apply the brakes. Just like it is the case for the car on the outside, it is the same with the car on the inside. In every moment of life, the human being should be guarding his mind and his senses. The senses should be controlled by the mind. The mind should be controlled by the intellect, and the intellect should be controlled by the soul. One should have control over their thoughts. One's senses should be like trained servants. When we go to many people's houses in India, then in some people's houses there are servants, but they are not trained servants. They've had the same servant for years and years who is just having fun on his own. We go and sit with him, and the hosts in the house say, shout, bring the water, bring the water. The servant then comes having brought the water. He has worn half trousers and a cloth tied around his head. He's coming having held the glasses of water in his hand, and many times he puts his finger in the water by mistake. This is how he brings the water. It tells us that here's your water, and we feel that should we drink this water or not? When we picked up the glass, then he's standing there saying, drink it quickly because I have other work elsewhere. and many other people like you coming here. This is what happens. When he comes to give everyone tea, then half the tea is spilt in the saucer, and he comes having brought that tea. Even when we're talking with the owner of the house, the servant keeps walking between us, and we see that the servant has gone back. He keeps interrupting us. Many times this happens. And then you go to some houses where the servants are trained. When we go to sit down, then there's not even a need to call them. As soon as we go and sit down, then they immediately bring a glass of water in a nice tray with a napkin and a plate in there. Then they go back, after having drunk the water, when we put it back, and there's not even need to call them, because they've seen that all the glasses have been emptied, and therefore everybody has drunk the water. They calmly take the tray and go. When it is time for tea, then they immediately come and place a tea there, and then they go back. They do not even keep coming in the middle of the conversations. They just stand there in case they're needed for some work. They only come if you call, otherwise they will not come. And they only come for the work that they've been called for, and then they go back. We should decide which out of these two servants have given us the best impression. It is the servants that are trained. In the same way, the senses that are eyes, ears, skin, and all the other senses are all our servants. They have been given to the soul in the form of the owner. But have we trained these servants properly? Or do they all keep running around in the middle? The mind is also a servant. Many times it so happens that the eyes and the ears are stuck in one place. You may be listening to the very nice verses of the 12th chapter of the Gita with your ears, but the servant, in the name of your mind, may jump somewhere else in the middle, and therefore we run wherever our mind goes. Then we try to bring ourselves back in order to concentrate on our ears, but then the eyes jump somewhere else. All these servants keep coming and going in the middle, and our own impression of all of this gets so bad, but yet we do not even realize this. The senses are necessary, and there is no opposition to the senses, but the senses should be given training. If there is needed, then you tell the ears that you listen to this, and that is it. If the eyes are jumping somewhere else, then you tell the eyes to come here and sit in one place. You should tell the mind to sit somewhere because you do not want the mind there. When this happens, then this is called being self-controlled, and this state should constantly be there. Shri Krishna then says that one should be ever unshakable in determination. Your determination should be unshakable. In reality, only that which is unshakable can be called determination. If something is not unshakable, then it is called a wave. God has therefore placed the word firm before the word determination. When can one have a determination? One can only have a determination if it is firm. If it is not firm, then it cannot be called a determination. A person says that I have a wish for it, and if it happens, it's fine. It's not like that. A determination should be unshakable. The reason why the majority of people average out in bhakti devotion is that the determination is not unshakable. And I'm not just talking about bhakti, but I'm talking about each and every field of life. If a student cannot study, then there's only one reason for this, and it's that he does not have a firm determination. A person who has a determination may have less memory or intelligence, but he has advanced ahead with the power of determination. And if a person has the best memory of all and the best intelligence of all, but does not have determination, then he will fall to the side. Even in business, if one wishes to earn wealth, then any determination that I will do this. This is very necessary. Today in society, determination is reducing. Firm decisions are reducing. That is why everybody in society feels ordinary to you. The reason for this is that nobody has determination. You do not even have to go too far in the past, but if you look at society 70 or 100 years ago, then there were so many extraordinary people. Wherever field you look into, be it politics, there were so many extraordinary people. Today, we do not see any extraordinary people. We don't even see any extraordinary people in politics today. Where is a leader today in the level of Gandhiji, Sardar Patel, Subhash Chandra Bose or Tilak? What did all of these people have? They had a determination that lasted. Even in the field of business, you can take 2 to 5 names, but they are not like they were in olden times. Determination of people is reducing. In bhakti devotion as well, one needs an unshakable determination. One needs the attitude that I will do it. Saints give us a very sweet scolding. A person puts bhakti devotion to one side. There are someone why did not come to a discourse yesterday evening. They say that we were going to leave and had decided everything, but it just started raining. We did not come. The rain keeps us far from the Gita. Saints ask in reply to this, you've only ever done this at home. that because it rains, have you ever done this, that because it rains, you did not eat? Have you ever decided that you will not eat because it rained? Has it ever happened that you decided that you will not sleep because it rained? No, all of this gets done, and in fact it gets done better. If it rains, then you get good sleep. Then if it rains, then why can the discourse not be good? One needs to have the attitude that I will do it. Such a small thing keeps us far from bhakti devotion. What I mean to say is that we have made a decision that we will go, but such a small thing shakes our determination to go. One has made a decision to perform mara, turning prayer beads while chanting the name of God, or to sit in dhyan, meditation. On some occasions we decide that from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. you will certainly sit in meditation, but such small things shake our determination to do this. This means that we do not have an unshakable determination. I'll give you a simple and straightforward equation that you can be able to do something. For example, that if you feel that you're not able to practice bhakti devotion today, then ask this to yourself. Am I going to stop eating curry, rice and chapati today? What if this happens? The answer will be no, so why should you stop bhakti devotion? This means that it's an excuse. One should have an unshakable determination. A devotee should have an unshakable determination inside him. Shri Krishna then says in this verse that the devotee should have his mind and his intellect given up to God. This is very important for a wedding. The mind should be given and the intellect should be given. This is because if you have not given your mind and your intellect to the Supreme Soul, then you cannot become one with the Supreme Soul. You are where your mind is. You are not really where your body is, you are where your mind is. We are where our minds are. Our intellects get pulled there, our body gets pulled there, and everything gets pulled there. If a mind reaches the feet of the Supreme Soul, then we ourselves reach the feet of the Lord. That is why Shri Krishna says to give your mind and your intellect to Him. Shri Krishna says that a devotee with these qualities is exceedingly dear to Him. And again, the word ever is put before the mind and intellect are given to me. And in this verse, and therefore we should constantly give our minds and our intellects that are the Supreme Soul. It will not work if our minds and our intellects are given to God for a few moments. Our minds and our intellects must constantly be given to God.